Hello and welcome to the Atheist Experience. Today is December 11th, 2005. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and my co-host for this week is my sister, the lovely Keryn Glasser. We are sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's at 1500 Barton Springs Road, west of South Lamar. Those start at 11:30, and they are open to any atheists or atheist-friendly people. You don't need to be a member to come. That is every Sunday except for the third Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. Those start at 12:30. The next regularly scheduled lecture will be next week on December 18th, and I believe there's no actual lecture lined up, but a discussion of ACA policies. Our other regular events include Godless Gamers every Monday at 7 o'clock at my house. You can check the website, www.atheist-community.org, for information on how you contact me and get directions, or you can also email tv@atheist-community.org. We also have Atheist Happy Hour on Thursdays at 7:30 at Antonio's Tex-Mex on the southbound feeder of I-35, just south of 183. And then there is Unholy Rollers, an atheist roller skating event every Tuesday night at Playland on McCann Drive near 183 in Burnet. You can check the website calendar for more information on regular and special events. We also have, in addition to this show, a regular internet audio show called The Non-Prophets every Saturday on freethoughtradio.com. The show is hosted by Jeff D., co-hosted by Dennis Lubay, and also features Matt Dillahunty and myself. The next live show will be on December 17th. That's next week. We weren't on yesterday live, but you can find out more information about the show and download archives of past episodes at nonprofitsradio.com. The ACA has a board meeting on the second Sunday of every month before the regular meeting. Currently, we are meeting at Schlotsky's Deli on 218 South Lamar, south of the bridge. All ACA members are welcome to come and sit in on board meetings, but only board members may vote. The next board meeting will be on January 8th. There was a board meeting this morning already, so if you were planning to go to one, you missed your chance until next month.
Sucks to be you.
Yes. If you enjoy the program today and you think you would like to come and meet us, we regularly meet for dinner after the show. Currently, we are meeting at Mongolian Barbecue downtown at 117 San Jacinto Boulevard. To get there, you just head a few blocks west on 1st Street from I-35. Mongolian Barbecue is a big Asian buffet where you pick your own meats, vegetables, noodles, and sauces, and they cook it up right in front of you. It's tons of fun. As with our other events, atheist and atheist-friendly people are welcome to come and join us, but please don't come and preach at us, because if you want to do that, then the phone number will be up on this show in about 25 minutes from now. So preach away on this show. In the meantime, we'll be there at Mongolian Barbecue starting around 6:45, so wait 45 minutes after the show ends. And actually, since it's so near the studio, we've been showing up a little earlier. So, I mean, you don't need to wait until 6:45. But the official time is 6:45. That does it for regular announcements. I now turn to Keryn Glasser.
Hi. Okay. So, I apologize for those of you who actually read the calendar. Apparently, my topic today was said to be the differences between the Jewish Old Testament and the Christian Old Testament, and I didn't research that. So, I'm going to put that off till like a month or 2 months from now. So then my original topic was going to be neuroscience, hyper-religiosity, and the God module and its correlations with codependence and addictive personality disorder, but that wouldn't fit across the bottom of the screen.
Egghead.
So I'm talking today about hyper-religiosity. This is a really...
What is hyper-religiosity?
I'm so glad you asked.
In short, few syllable words.
Crazy people who are religious. No, just kidding. Actually, as a matter of fact, hyper-religiosity is a term that's used for people who have... Okay, see, now I'm starting in the middle of my speech and I'm just going to confuse myself. Hyper-religiosity is a term used for people who really are kind of crazy about their religion. I mean, they're really religiously obsessed. And it's frequently found in people who either have schizophrenia or some other form of psychosis, or people who have a particular form of epilepsy called temporal lobe epilepsy. It is a side effect caused by defects in the brain. Ha! I knew it all along.
I didn't.
I worked at a nursing home previous to my current job where our main population really was the under 50 psychiatric diagnosis patient rather than the getting old and senile patient. And I had several schizophrenic patients who had hyperreligiosity, and I don't even know if I can really describe it, but there are a lot of... Let me back up. I'm just going to give a little bit of a couple of fancy words and a little bit of historical detail, and then I'll go into hyperreligiosity a little bit more. Okay?
Okay.
Don't snore.
Okay. I'll try to learn some new words.
Thank you. So there's this field of science called neuroscience, which studies the brain.
Neuroscience.
Studies the brain and the central nervous system. Branching out from neuroscience, there is another field of study that's called neurotheology, and it's really not a very commonly and widely accepted field as a science, but it's referred to more in philosophy, like when you're studying philosophy. But neurotheology, which is also referred to as biotheology, is the study of the neural basis of spirituality.
And neural means?
The brain.
Okay.
Where spirituality might originate inside your brain. And, okay, a lot of atheist people are going to try and prove there's got to be a reason why people believe in God and why they're so prone to believing in God and spiritual things and supernatural things and aliens and ghosts and all that kind of stuff. Everybody tries to challenge atheists by saying, 98% of the population believes in God. They can't all be wrong. What about all those people in Africa who believe in God even though we didn't tell them there was a God or something like that? So there's got to be a God for that reason. Well, so atheists and skeptical people set out to study why this phenomenon is, and that field became known as neurotheology. Now, people...
So all neurotheologists are atheists, do you think?
Now, I don't know. I don't know, honestly, because no, I don't think so. And here's why. Is because I would think the knee-jerk reaction of someone who believes that God is real and the Bible is literal and it's the Word of God and all that kind of stuff would feel very defensive and maybe angry that we're trying to prove that it's this part of the brain. But through some of this testing and some of the evidence that has come about to prove that there is some brain interaction involved in having religious experiences, there's also been... And again, I'm skipping ahead, so it's in here somewhere, but there's some reverend or bishop or something who came out on the record saying that, of course there would be a God module in the brain because God put it there.
So as like a receiver.
Exactly.
To his cosmic radio waves. Right?
See, yeah, I thought that was really interesting when I read that.
I can make rationalizations too.
Exactly. We know how you people think. So there's this...
Not completely.
Yeah. So it started out in the 1950s and 60s when early studies used EEGs to study brainwave patterns correlated with spiritual states. During the 1980s, a guy named Dr. Michael Persinger stimulated the temporal lobes of human subjects with a weak magnetic field. His subjects claimed to have a sensation of an ethereal presence in the room. So basically he created this helmet that creates a magnetic field that let me back up again. It came, okay, I keep pronouncing it wrong, I'm sorry. Okay, so this kind of started out because people were noticing that people who are hyper-religious tend to have some kind of psychosis, or, it comes from some kind of psychosis or from seizure disorder. And so they started studying people with seizure disorder by sort of, hooking up probes to their brains, to their temporal lobes, and seeing what kind of activity was going on when they were having a religious experience, or when somebody was talking to them about religious things. And they did notice that there were some lymph nodes in the brain, in the temporal lobe. I'm thinking about deep frying my brain.
I was saying earlier that the temporal lobe sounds like the part of the brain that allows you to appreciate Japanese food.
The temporal lobe region of the brain, certain areas, certain lymph nodes would flare up when these people with seizure disorder were having religious experiences, or were being talked to about religious things. And then they took that and they compared it to people that didn't have epilepsy or psychosis, and did their part of the brain still flare up when they were thinking about religious things. What they haven't done yet in their studies is tested on an atheist or an agnostic person who doesn't believe in God, and see if there is no activity going on in our temporal lobes that would basically prove the other side of that. So they haven't studied both sides of it. So this is how something came around called the God module of the brain, or the God spot, or the G spot. No, just kidding. Okay, so there's this spot in the brain, and it makes you be religious. Maybe they haven't. The studies are still early. They're still kind of premature, so they're not totally conclusive yet. But it's a theory. Am I using the word theory right?
Has it been tested?
Yes.
Then I guess it's a theory.
It's a theory. Okay, and I know it's been tested by more than one scientist. Because there's this guy named Persinger who started it in the 1980s, and then there's this other guy who was doing these tests on the people with epilepsy, and his name was sorry, Ramachandran. Dr.
Ramachandran.
Yeah, something
at
like
UCSD, that's where I went to school.
UCSD, so your
and
alma
I did
mater.
not know him because I was not in that department.
Yeah.
So who cares? But no, I mean, who cares if I went there?
So this is really common in my field of work. I'm a social worker, and I've worked in nursing homes, and I currently work at hospice. So it's a little bit less common where I work now, but you still see it from time to time. I don't know. Have I bored you guys yet? What am I talking about here?
No, you're talking
There's
about
a God Center. There's
G-spot.
Oh, I'm going to skip to hyper-religiosity. You're going to get some. You're going to solicit some really bad callers. Stop it. So this guy Ramachandran was among a group of neuroscientists at the University of California at San Diego, who identified this region of the human brain that appears to be linked to thoughts of spiritual matters and prayer. I'm reading this off an atheist website that compiles all these different news stories from different magazines and journals and newspaper articles together. But there was a part in it where they brought up something really interesting. It also seems to be linked to the part of the brain that subscribes significance to things. If you are there are certain, I think it takes a certain personality of person to be kind of sentimental about things, and people have a tendency to subscribe significance to things. You gave me this pen so I could write down your number when I first met you, and now we're married and I kept this pen forever. But when we break up, I'm going to burn it symbolically, something like that. So you subscribe significance to things.
So does this also lead to an increased perception of coincidences as something really important?
Yeah, when you're subscribing significance to things, and also it can lead to, it can lead you to looking around and seeing significance in everything, seeing God in everything, seeing, the fact that I found this Bible in my garage that my mother gave me that I haven't been able to find for the last 10 years means that God was giving me a sign.
Right. This is like what faith healers count on TV when they say, there's someone out there who has a disorder of the kidney of some sort, and now you're healed. And, this was actually mentioned in an Al Franken book that I thought was a pretty hilarious bit, where he was talking about Pat Robertson, who... He said, I don't think Pat Robertson thinks these things out very carefully, because say he says, there's someone out there who has, I forgot the disease name, but, so it's like allergic to nuts or something like that. And now she's cured. She's out there in Ohio somewhere. And Al Franken says, here's why I don't think he thought this through very well, because say you're a woman in Ohio, in Toledo, and you think it's you, so you say, hey, I'm cured, and you eat a bowl of nuts, and you die, because it wasn't you, it was someone in Cincinnati. Because, if God could figure out that it's a woman, and it's in Ohio, and the problem was being allergic to nuts, why couldn't he cough up a name and address?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry for that digression.
So let's go into some traits of hyperreligiosity, which is a mental illness. It's defined as a mental illness taking on a religious nature. There's some characteristic features you'll find in people who are hyperreligious, and it'll be, we all like to think that religion in its purest form is all good and happy and wonderful. It comes from being non-judgmental. It comes from loving your neighbor as yourself. It comes from clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, and sheltering the homeless, and, all this good stuff. Goodwill towards man and charity, and all these good things come out of religion.
I'm for that.
I'm for that too, Things like Alcoholics Anonymous and things like, support groups and singles dating clubs and, whatever these things come out of.
South Park just shredded Alcoholics Anonymous last week.
Really?
Yes.
I don't watch South Park, I'm sorry.
know. I don't watch it that much lately either, but this was pretty funny.
So a lot of times, especially on this show, especially in Texas, especially in this administration, we'll run across a lot of people who take religion the other way. They'll instead of being, non-judgmental, they'll be extremely judgmental. They'll be very harsh, even paranoid. They'll be religiously obsessed. They'll have, they come about, let's see.
They'll threaten us. They'll say, you'll be sorry when you die and you find out, that you're going to be tortured forever.
Well, yeah, and when you have hyperreligiosity, I can think of some good examples of people who would be likely to have hyperreligiosity that comes from some kind of psychosis or epilepsy. This would be, first of all, the kinds of people that feel compelled to murder abortion doctors, They feel that it is their God-given mission to go out and save the world from these evil abortion doctors by killing them. People, if you've ever seen the movie Frailty, who feel that they have this mission in life to kill all the demon-invaded people who are, doing horrible things. Whatever they feel is horrible, whether it's child abuse or even if it's just, one of those old mothers who thinks she has to lock her son in a cell so that he won't. Yeah,
there have been a lot of cases, a lot of which seem to have happened in Texas. Susan Smith, a bunch of women who had a whole bunch of kids and killed them. And every time I hear another story like that, I immediately jump to, what's the religious angle? And I'm always right. Not because being religion makes you a psycho killer of kids, but because...
being hyper-religious probably does.
Yeah.
makes you want to. If you ever saw the movie Detroit Rock City, there was this kid, and he had his mom or whoever he was living with. I assume it was his mom, maybe it was his grandma. But, she was just one of these very hyper-religious people. She burned his records of Kiss because they were the devil, and she locked him in his room when she found dirty magazines under his bed, and she tried to send him off to a boarding school because he wanted to go to a dance with a girl. Stuff like this, that means that the devil is trying to invade your body, so we have to lock you in a dark room and deprive you of food and water until the devil leaves your body. There have actually been other stories in the news as well, about things like kids who have been found, who are 6 years old and obviously have never been let outside their room, and they're like chained to their bed and brought food every day and stuff like that. And all of this comes from psychotic episodes of hyper-religiosity, usually. Not always, but, or various different forms of schizophrenia or something like that. So, feeling like it is your God-sent mission to drive an airplane into the World Trade Center.
That's pretty hyper-religious.
Feeling like, and hyper-religiosity can also be used, I found this line somewhere that I thought was really interesting, where they were saying it makes it, like, political groups use religious belief as a dividing line in the exercise of power as a way to build sides so that other aims can be achieved. For example, so that the war that they want to have could be more easily approved. Because when hyper-religious does not exist in a person, there usually has to be very, very strong reasons to justify war.
Usually.
Yes, I am biased and slanting that at a particular person.
You're a liberal.
I'm a liberal. I think war is bad. I think that using religious reasons to get elected to an office and justify a war is not okay. And I'm, wondering if that comes from some kind of temporal lobe epilepsy that hasn't been learned to the public.
Anyway.
Okay. People who feel compelled to commit mass suicide, those groups that get together, and if we all drink this little jungle juice potion.
Those guys lived like 30 miles from me.
Really?
Yeah. The cult leader, the head guy was named Marshall Applewhite, but he called himself Doe.
Doe?
Doe! Yeah. D-O.
And people who believe in the rapture, I think. And I've talked to a lot of Christians.
People who write books about the rapture, and people who eat them up by the millions.
Eat the books up? Or
read them.
What?
Purchase the books.
Like what? Okay.
Purchase the books by the millions.
I've actually talked to a lot of religious people that consider themselves to be very, very Christian, who think that anybody that really believes in the rapture, as in like something that's going to happen in the next couple of years, are crazy. And I don't know. Right,
but some of them run our country. Isn't that a cheering thought?
So, do they believe in the rapture?
I think at least some of them do.
Okay.
I'm not pointing to any particular people.
Okay. So other things that you'll see in people who are hyper-religious is that they'll become very suspicious. Again, like that mother who just because her son was talking to a girl, she becomes very suspicious that, he's going to commit all these impure acts. They'll become isolated, and they'll become full of untrue images of God that they can mold to their personal desires. There was a part in here where it said, hyper-religiosity happens most often when one thinks that they know the mind of God, and that one can know all the ways of God. The Bible is one of the scriptures of the major world religions that clearly states that this is impossible. There are psychological reasons why a person with hyper-religiosity needs to have the assurance that they know the complete mind of God. A lot of people with hyper-religiosity will have big self-esteem issues. I mean, it'll spring from big self-esteem issues like they need to feel they have special purpose. They need to feel they've been chosen by God, because just being an ordinary human being even if being an ordinary human being in your religion means that you are the chosen people, or you were created in God's image. But just being a human being is not enough. You have to be chosen by God. You have to be extra special, or you have to live your life as strictly and rigorously as possible. And by doing that, you have to put down other people for the ways that they don't do that. So they'll, practice extreme self-denial. They'll especially from like material goods, and they'll empty their lives of anything that they find to be ungodly, and then they'll fill all those empty spaces with prayer.
By the way, you can go on in a minute, but in case you didn't notice, the phone number has been available at the bottom of your screen. This being a live call-in show, if the date is December 11th, 2005. If you're watching a rerun, then you won't see the phone number, and I won't tell you what it is, so as to avoid annoying other people who might be using this studio when we run the rerun. But if you see the date and the phone number at this moment, then you are free to call that phone number and participate in the discussion we are having on this show. Go on.
Okay. Let's see. And I mean, I'm pretty much, I can be at a stopping point anytime we start getting phone calls, which we are starting to get phone calls.
Yes.
But let's see. What else have I got here? People who are, cutters. People who do things to themselves to punish themselves. Dobby! In Harry Potter, people who feel like if they
I would call Dobby hyper-religious.
Yeah.
About his masters.
Yeah. People who feel that if they even in their own minds
Dobby
question God.
I'm sorry, I don't want to make this an in-joke. Dobby is an elf who lives with a family in Harry Potter, and he runs around frantically doing this guy's bidding, and anytime he's tempted to disobey, he does something like hit himself, or Dobby's sorry, Dobby will go burn himself in the fireplace.
Yeah. And he'll commit violent acts on himself. And, so hyper-religious people who feel that they haven't been perfectly sticking to the letter of God's law, or even in their own mind, if they looked at someone and were attracted to them, and that means that they're sinning in their minds because they're feeling lustful over this person. Or they, in their mind, question, well, what if there isn't a God? Because they were talking to someone like me, and what if there wasn't a God? And then they'll go and they'll feel so full of guilt about the fact that they committed this horrible sin that they'll start cutting on themselves, or they'll hurt themselves in some way or another. And that is pretty common.
You want to take a break to take calls?
Sure. Calls is good.
All right. No, wait. Somebody is not passing us messages about who the callers are.
Well, then I'll go on to this
continue.
part. And it also says in one of these articles, I should be citing these articles, I'm sorry. This one was from a book review for an upcoming book called Hyper-Religiosity, Identifying and Overcoming Patterns of Religious Dysfunction.
Will you be reading this book?
By R.S. Pearson.
Okay.
I might.
Okay.
I did even some of my research at work, and I didn't feel very guilty about it, because I do have patients who are hyper-religious, and as an atheist, I feel it's important to learn, common clinical approaches to working with these people, because I want to treat them effectively, treat them with dignity and respect, and help them. And arguing with them is not necessarily the most effective way to do that. And trying to reality orient them isn't either. And so, actually, I do think that reading this book would be interesting. And the interesting thing about this book is it's written by a self-proclaimed hyper-religious person.
Wow.
He claims that he has hyper-religiosity, and part of it is how to overcome your own hyper-religiosity.
Now, I found out right before the show that we actually have a member of the crew who believes that he has hyper-religiosity and says, I experienced the things that that religious people claim to experience with the hearing God and stuff, and I just realized, oh, this is part of my epilepsy. And he's an atheist.
He told us that he does have diagnosed temporal lobe epilepsy, which is a really interesting, thing to know when we're studying this subject.
Yes.
So, in a lot of daily news, we'll hear, or just daily pop culture, we'll hear people comparing us always to, how things were so wonderful 50 years ago, and how families were so much more functional and together and religious. And the reason is because, God was in their homes and families stayed together, and divorce was less common and stuff like that. It was about 50 years ago that they put under God into the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
Before, the Pledge of Allegiance didn't have under God into it. But behind that, there were also more children being physically, verbally, and sexually abused, with fewer, groups to back them up or support them, fewer interventions available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready to go to callers? Yeah. Okay, we're going to start our calls off with Tom. Hello, Tom.
Hi.
Hi.
It's kind of too bad that we're not religious. Otherwise, I could claim some divine intervention about this call. I was planning on calling your show today to get some advice about 12-step programs that aren't based on God and spirituality, and you already mentioned AA, so praise Jesus. He's watching over us. But seriously, do you know anything about that? Your call screener already gave me.
Yes,
he already gave it to you.
I would like the call screener to put the message up on my computer here, because I know that there is an organization.
It's called SOS. It's called
thank you.
Something about our sobriety. Not save our
Secular
sobriety. Secular outreach sobriety. It's called SOS.
Somebody
if you
in
go
the
onto the
control room
internet,
must know that.
Yeah, if you go onto the internet and you Google search, SOS plus alcohol abuse or something like that, it'll bring it up. They have a national website. If somebody in the control room knows that website or any contact information, they can certainly put it up on the screen, and that would be great.
And for me, if possible, if they have a phone number, if you could put that up or just say it, because I don't have the internet.
We don't have the internet right here either.
But okay, another thing that you can do is if you email our
he doesn't have the internet.
He doesn't have the internet. That was stupid.
I'm hopelessly behind the time.
Well, okay. Here's what we can try. There's a computer out in the lobby of the TV studio, and maybe someone could run and do some Googling, and we'll come back at you later in the show. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine, and maybe even one of the other viewers, who knows, that could call in if they have information.
Yeah, also if viewers could call in and give that information.
I'd really appreciate that. I think those kind of programs might help me, but I just can't deal with the higher power and all that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the thing is, and of course,
I don't blame you.
I'm not an alcoholic, and I've never been to Alcoholics Anonymous, but what I know about their reputation is that they help you find the will to stay off alcohol, by finding strength in God.
And what I understand from seeing South Park last week is they tell you you're powerless, and then they were implying that it makes you feel like you're stuck with alcohol, even if even if you thought before that you could handle it by yourself.
Yeah.
And nobody.
So this other group, all the secular groups in the country came together and said, there should be, like, for people who, got a DUI and are taken to court and are mandated to take some kind of alcohol intervention program, the secular group said there should be some alternative to AA for secular people who aren't going to respond well to this program. And so this group called SOS came out.
Okay, well, great. If you can get me any information on it on this show or even in future shows, because I usually watch every week, I'd really appreciate it. And thanks a lot.
No problem.
Great show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Can I get a wave from somebody out there if you've heard that somebody in the studio is looking for that information as we speak?
Look, secularsobriety.org.
Oh, thank you. But that won't help him, so we need a phone number.
Yeah, we need a phone number.
Secularsobriety.org. Somebody find it.
If you would like to make a call,
please.
And the
I had to
problem is,
hang up
I
too.
mean, the problem is, of course, this is a national organization, so depending on where your area is, I mean, we can put up a local number for whatever Austin groups they have, but
Right.
of course, the website. And if you don't have internet access, you can go to your local public library, and they have internet access there that you can use.
That's true.
If you're that driven to find
So
out.
write down that site. You might use it later.
And if you want to find out information about where your local public libraries are, go to www. Just kidding.
Yes. Sort of like those commercials they used to run on the radio. Are you illiterate? Then call for our new literacy program. Just dial 1-800-ABCDEFG. Hang on, something isn't right there. Okay, so we're going to go on next to David.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to say that I respect everyone's religion and everyone's right to
Or lack of religion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not really like religious myself, so it's not something I can honestly say 100% I believe in God. But it just gives you a good feeling of it just gives you the good purpose. When you're like in a bad situation, when you come from a divorce, when your dad dies, your mom dies, so something bad happens, and there's someone else telling you, comforting you and telling you, you can get through this, and just trust in something higher than a higher power. So it gives you more. Gives you more. I don't know. It's like energy or feeling the right thing to be in the right place.
It gives you a higher sense that there's a higher purpose out there, and there's someone looking over your shoulder, making sure to tell you that everything's going to be okay. And I, especially in my line of work, understand the function of that. I understand how religion can make people. It can give people answers to things that are currently unanswerable, and it can make people feel better where they can't find it anywhere else. And if you are not a religious person that believes in God, it's very unfortunate that you don't have that to turn to. And, but Russell's bursting to say something.
Yes, I am, actually. I mean, as much as religion strokes and comforts people in some cases, it also does the opposite a lot.
It makes you dependent on it.
Well, I mean, not just that. I mean, religion doesn't just tell you that there's a nice guy who's looking out for you and making sure that everything goes right. Christianity, at least, teaches that there is a vengeful God, whose name is jealous, according to the Old Testament, and who has a special place set aside for unbelievers like us, or perhaps your family and your relatives, or perhaps you, if you don't believe strongly enough, where you'll go after you die to be tortured forever and ever.
Well, it's kind of like a hard thing to get a perfect system or a perfect thing. If you try to look at things that are perfect, it's really hard to see something that is. But when something gets so close to being like that, I mean, it's like when you're with your kids, you don't want to tell them, I'll hit your hand if you take something, or you don't want to say bad things, but you don't want to make him feel bad. You want to still make it right. So hell, I guess is in a way for the kids to learn to be good, and just a good purpose for society.
But yeah,
it's a threat. It's a way to say
if you're Christian, don't you have to actually believe that some people really go there, or are you saying that hell is just made up?
It's an empty threat.
Well, I guess. Some people actually think that there is a hell, and then you all go to hell. But
but you don't believe there's a hell.
Well, I don't try to look the bad things. I try to be positive.
Okay, so it's not that religion as a basket of beliefs actually makes you happier overall. It's that you can pick and choose which bits of it you believe, so that you come to something that makes you happier.
That's right.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, you can make up anything that makes you happier. You could you could believe that the flying spaghetti monster will put you in an afterlife where you'll have a beer volcano for eternity.
Well, like on Christmas.
I mean, just because it comforts you doesn't mean that it's true.
It might not be true, it might. So it's like a 50-50 thing, you never know, and it's a good purpose, it's a good thing to do. They're not telling you to kill people or do anything bad, they're telling you, just
well,
live your
again,
life.
when we say that Christianity is the big religion of pick and choose, there is a lot of stuff in the Bible that if you're looking for it will back up killing people, and raping and murdering and pillaging and stealing and doing all this kind of stuff. There are
absolutely.
religious leaders
There's tons of stuff in the Old Testament where God actually says, "Go kill these people for me." Mm-hmm. Doesn't he?
Moses did it. Jesus did it.
Jesus didn't kill
Muhammad
people, but he went around with a big whip and started whacking people in the money changers.
Commanded other people, commanded his followers. Muhammad, I recently watched a movie about Muhammad and about Islam, and he commanded people. Okay, at first, like the first half of the movie, it was like, we will not fight back, we will not do war. We'll just sit here and take it because God will reward us in the afterlife. And if they try and kill us, and then in the second half of the movie, all of a sudden, Muhammad was like, okay, God changed his mind, go out and kill a bunch of people. Fight back.
The only thing I can say is, nothing is perfect. Everything has that, like. Mm-hmm. If you just try to look the positive and negative things, and then you're going to see that there's more things that come from, like, religious things, like the base of the United States was, like, religious. Mm-hmm. Everything started, because people just want to look to believe there's a higher thing, and just to want to, like, feel like they're doing the right thing and be sure that they're doing the right thing.
But part of the reason that people are so anxious to believe that there's a higher thing is because we've got this culture that basically tells us you should believe in a higher thing. And Alcoholics Anonymous is a perfect example. If you don't believe in a higher thing, then you're powerless. And in politics, you've got a lot of people saying, if you're not one of those people who believe in a higher thing, then you're an amoral scumbag. So it's not entirely that people want to believe in a higher thing because they have this need to do it. It's also culturally driven. Yeah. And when you look at the fact that sometimes the higher thing tells people in the stories to do some really awful stuff, I can't really say that overall the belief in that thing is better than not.
Oh, if you want to set some values, on the church, if you go to church, they're not going to say kill people or anything. They're always going to tell you, try your best, live your life, don't lie, just...
Yeah, but there are plenty of churches right now who not only say, try, live your best, don't kill people. They also say, we hate certain kinds of people getting to get married. We don't hate those people, but we hate those people having the particular kinds of rights. And they spread the message that all people like us are awful people who have no values. Mm-hmm. There are things that are said in churches all over America now that we find morally repugnant.
About a gay marriage, I'm not sure about. If I see a gay person, I don't care. I don't usually just walk away, or not in a rude way. Just I leave it and think that everyone has the right to choose and what they want to do and what they want to live for.
Unfortunately, the state of Texas doesn't feel that way.
Right, as we just found out in November.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know, like
in addressing, again, and going back to your original statement that it helps you find hope when, horrible things are going on in your life. When you're living your life without having God in it, and of course this show is called the Atheist Experience, and horrible things happen to you, you have to find other things to turn to. And it is when you're religious, you always turn to God for those other things. When you're not religious, you turn to why did this happen? How can I prevent it from happening again? Who do I have in my life? My friends, my family, my loved ones, my community, my society, my coworkers, who will support me to get through this hard time in my life.
Yeah.
And you can get through it, and you can, without feeling. I mean, like, for example, in religion, say somebody, killed your son, and the only way that you can feel okay about that is that he'll be in hell in his afterlife, But in atheism, you don't have that option. But in atheism, you can start community groups, and you can educate people and go to schools and talk about school violence and become involved in politics and try and do things in the world, try and do proactive things in the world to stop stuff like this from happening to other people. You can use that proactively to make the good things come around rather than just saying, well, it's a good thing he's going to hell in his afterlife. I might as well, commit capital punishment and have him killed so that he hurries up and goes to hell.
Right. One of the things that religion actually teaches, which I think is somewhat detrimental, or can be, to believers, is basically teaching, whether directly or indirectly, that this life kind of doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I mean, that whatever happens, well, at least you can wait around and see something better in the next life, and that one will be forever, where this one will be like, 80 years. And thanks to that, there are a lot of anti-environmental movements, for instance, based on, the planet's going to, who cares if the planet will be used up in 100 years or 500 years? We won't be here, and besides, God's going to destroy the world. It doesn't matter. The important thing to do with this poor person is save their soul.
Oh, what I want to say to things is that this is the questions. Think of having Christmas without God. Your family together. I don't know. It just gives you like a dream, kind of. When you imagine, your family together. God and everything is just like, I don't know, a magic moment.
You don't really need Christmas to do that. Our family gets together every year at Thanksgiving. Some people's families get together every year. Which,
I should say, is also a holiday with religious.
And going to church, the little kids going to church, and it's all like, positive thing.
No, it's not. We have atheists who will testify. We will have atheists who will let you know that going to church as a little kid is not all positive.
Yeah, I guess it's not everything good, but the thing is the world sucks, there's sometimes some things that we don't like and it happens,
see, okay, and this is I don't think the world sucks.
Me neither.
I think sucky things happen from time to time. I don't think that the world is a horrible place to be in, and I don't think that life is a horrible thing to have to suffer through.
It's sort of like the glass is half empty or half full.
Right.
And it also goes back to this thing about saying this life doesn't matter. It sort of encourages you to think about things that suck in this life and generalize that.
This world sucks, but God has a plan for us. This world sucks, but if we survive it, we're going on to a better place in the next life. In my opinion, this life is worth it. This life is good. This life has good things going on. This life, and if there are bad things going on in the world, rather than say, at least it'll be better in the next life, or, in any case, I can pray to God and hope that He'll stop those bad things from happening. Again, I can go out and be proactive and stop those things from happening.
Can I get an amen?
Amen, brother. Yeah, and I want to do this. I see things that I don't like in the world. I want to get involved in politics. And if that just means right now in my life I'm voting, that's one thing that I can do, and so far that hasn't been very effective for me. But if that means that later on I can become a lobbyist or run for, by the way, I'm running for mayor in 2006. My platform is that I am.
Oh.
my platform is that I'm going to make Travis County an independent state. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in our independent state, people can get married. Why not? I'm going to be
Do
a
you have the
write-in
forms?
candidate. Not yet.
Okay.
I'm going to be a write-in candidate, so write me in.
All right.
Keryn Glasser.
Okay.
Spelled funny.
Vote running for mayor. Travis County,
But-
Independent State. You know,
Serious?
we can have
Okay.
all kinds of liberal, atheistic things going on in our state.
Oh,
kidding.
Yeah.
I just last thought. I understand where you guys are coming
Okay.
from. Like I see people that are actually religious and they're blindfolded and think just one thing. They're like close their minds to other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand. Like sometimes it's like, oh gosh, I can't believe these people think this.
Mm-hmm.
I like actually been out of the country, like by Central America, and people think that the war's gonna end in 10 years, and I'm like. Just think and get studied. It's hard because they're like, no, it's gonna happen like that. But there's some people that actually are open-minded to other things, and again,
Okay.
it's not everyone that gets educated to actually be open-minded.
Well, we've got other callers on the
Okay.
line, so we gotta move on. But thanks a lot for your call, David.
Thank you.
Bye. For a few moments, I had all the information about the secular
It's
sobriety
up on the screen
thing.
right now.
Oh,
Secular
okay.
Organizations for
Thanks.
Sobriety.
Yes,
This is the local
this is
number you
for
can
Tom.
call.
Secular Organizations for Sobriety and 512
219-9008.
Yes.
To call for local meetings and times, and they'll probably set you up with a local buddy who, will help you when you're feeling like you want to have a drink and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Secular stuff. I'd like to give a quick news update. Actually, first I'd like to mention again that after the show we'll be meeting for dinner. That's me and Keryn and all our members of the crew, and there's a lot of them that you've never seen because they all work diligently behind the camera. But at around 6:45 or possibly a bit earlier, we'll be going to Mongolian Barbecue that is downtown on 117 San Jacinto Boulevard. So check out where that is. And if you are atheist or atheist friendly, then please feel free to show up and join us. Bit of a news update. I think a week or two ago we reported that there was a Professor Marecki in Kansas who was responding to all the stuff about intelligent design that's going on by saying, well, I'm going to teach a college level course on intelligent design, but it's going to be about how intelligent design is mythology, which we thought was funny. But apparently some other people didn't, because Professor Marecki was assaulted and beaten by two unidentified men. And the course was pulled by the college, and he was forced to resign recently as head of the university's religious studies department. According to CNN.com from, I believe it was this morning, a college professor who drew sharp criticism for comments deriding Christian fundamentalists over intelligent design said he was forced out as chairman of the university's religious studies department. Paul Marecki, who remains a professor at the University of Kansas, said he had no choice when he signed the resignation letter, typed on stationery from the dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Quote, "The university penalized me and denied me my constitutionally protected right to speak and express my mind," he said in a written statement Friday for the Lawrence Journal World. He said his career has been ruined and his speaking engagements canceled. Marecki also said he has retained an attorney. The university, quote, "has a duty as a protector of intellectual honesty and debate to support its teaching staff when controversial issues are raised," he wrote. University spokeswoman Lynn Bretz said Saturday that Marecki resigned the chairmanship last week on the recommendation of faculty members. So, there you go.
That really sucks.
Yeah.
That bums me out a lot. I thought that was a pretty cool thing that was going to happen.
It's been a bad week for Paul Marecki. And frankly, if people read my private email, they could find me saying some humorous off-the-cuff things about people I don't agree with. But it doesn't mean that I would want to say them
And I would
know,
speculate
publicly.
whether or not the people who felt compelled as their religious duty to beat up this professor because he was going to teach the Bible as mythology.
Well, also because an email surfaced where he was saying this ought to really piss the fundies off.
And hence they felt compelled to beat him up,
Right.
get him into the hospital, and make him drop out of
Oh,
being a teacher.
yes, I'm being reminded that there's a sort of related blog article on my blog that's down there at the bottom of the screen, Kazim's Corner at .blogspot.com. My most recent article is about mocking people. I'm for it. And that's what Professor Marecki did. Okay. So I guess that's the end of that story. Shall we move on to Keith?
Okay, sure.
Hello, Keith.
Hello, gang. How y'all doing?
Fine.
Couple things. I watch you guys every Sunday,
Okay.
Thank
and
you.
so I want you to know I'm not a casual watcher. I'm pretty regular.
All right.
And I
Well,
am a
thank you
Christian.
for watching.
One of the things that I've noticed, I'm just going to say this, and I'll go straight to my point. But I will notice that you guys have a curious fixation with Christians, in particular. We're not the only ones, by the way, who believe in God, and we're not the only ones who have a concept of hell. But I do notice when you were a few minutes ago talking about the concept of hell, when you had your rather verbose caller on here a few hours ago. But anyway, you shot right into Christians. Yes, we do believe in the concept of hell, but we're not the only ones who believe in the concept of hell. The other thing that disturbs me is that you tend to put out a few, and I'm not, I mean, this is not really, I guess the way I'd characterize it, but just for the sake of nicety or whatever, I'll say half-truths about Christian. Miss Glasser, you were the most recent, you mentioned about, like, for instance, if somebody's loved one was the victim of murder, and you mentioned something, not so many words, but words to the effect that instead of, Christians wish them to hell. Christians don't wish people to hell. As a matter of fact, Christians, and I don't know what you've observed as Christian, maybe what you were observing, they weren't Christians, maybe they just called themselves, or maybe they were wearing trinkets, but Christians don't wish anyone to hell. As a matter of fact, if it were our way, there would be no hell.
So you disagree with God?
Don't wish people to hell.
I have two statements. First of all, that's not what I said. I said Christians find solace in the fact that at least this person's going to go to hell. At least I can know that they're going to be punished for their sins.
Yeah, I
didn't say they wish them to.
paraphrasing what you said, but that still is not true.
Okay. And second of all, I would challenge you to tell me one religion on the planet that believes in hell that's not Christian in origin.
Muslims.
Islam is Christian in origin.
Islam is not a Christian religion, sweetheart.
But they believe in hell. Yes. They are a Judeo-Christian religion.
It is an offshoot of Christianity.
It is.
No.
Yes, it is. In the 7th
not.
century, it's basically an offshoot of Christian teachings.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. I think I know where you're coming from. Christianity is an offshoot of Judaism.
Yes.
Islam was
Judaism doesn't believe in hell, though.
Beg your pardon?
Judaism doesn't believe in hell, though.
True. So the common ancestor of hell, in an evolutionary sense, would be Christianity.
Islam was an offshoot of Christianity. They believe that Jesus is the Messiah.
No.
Thank you, sir. Please correct your co-host.
No, they believe that Jesus was a prophet, but not.
They believe
not a
that
God.
Jesus was a prophet.
Which does not make them Christians.
We're not saying that they are Christians, and you are correct. You are absolutely correct that Christianity is not the only religion that believes in hell.
Thank you.
Who else believes in hell?
Islam is not Christianity. Okay, so I'm agreeing with the guy. Islam is an offshoot of Christianity, but Islam is not itself the same thing as Christianity, just like Protestantism is actually an offshoot of there was only Catholicism about 500 years ago, and then there was Protestantism, but being Protestant is not the same as being a Catholic.
Well, thank you for educating your co-host. I'll move on anyway.
But wait, can I respond to your earlier charges?
Yes.
Okay. We know perfectly well that that Islam has many repugnant beliefs, and we talk about them when they are a major issue in the news.
I agree. You do.
Okay, so on September, so following September 11th, and often when the anniversary of it rolls around, we pay special attention to that stuff, and we've certainly devoted entire shows to religions that although they might consider themselves Christian, I'm sure you wouldn't. That includes Islam, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, and one-time Scientology.
All religions that believe in hell, by the way.
Right. Exactly.
Scientology doesn't believe in hell.
No, not Scientology. I'm talking about Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormon.
But what I'm saying is that the reason we focus on Christianity for the most part is because Christianity is the religion that is most dominant in our culture. And when we see stuff happening in the news that's related to religion, it's most of the time Christianity, stuff that directly affects us. That's not to say that we're giving other religions a pass. It's just that Christianity is most at the forefront of national attention.
And it's not only that, but Christianity is one of the main religions in the world that are the most proactive. It is not
in this part of the world.
In this part of the world. Actually, the fastest-growing religion in the world is Islam.
Okay, I can tell you, but it's not the Islamics or the Jews who are trying to get prayer into schools.
In this country.
In this country.
In that country, they have it.
It is not the Buddhists that are trying to get prayer into schools.
In this country.
In this country.
Right.
Yes. And I'm talking about this country, so after every sentence you can stop correcting me.
But the reason why Muslims are not trying to get prayer into school in this country is partly because of something your co-host earlier said, is that Christianity, at least right now, is the dominant religion.
Exactly.
That is correct.
If I can tell you,
that's exactly why we end up talking about Christianity the most, because
the Muslims are a large force in this country, and if they had their way, they would also institute not only just prayer in school.
Have I said anything about how I'd like Muslims to take over?
No.
Okay.
No, and actually, and I did not start my dialogue with you saying that you only single out Christians. I said that you seem to have
all right. So what's the nature of your complaint exactly? What should we be doing differently?
I let you go, so I never did finish it.
Okay.
One of the things that I was going to say to you was, among the things that you said that were a little bit disturbing, I also find it amusing that earlier, Ms. Glasser, you also said that instead of wishing a perpetrator of murder to hell, that you do positive things. As a matter of fact, you even used the term good, like starting community groups to try to make sure that these things don't happen again. You also said something, too, and I'm going to group these two kind of unrelated things, that your family gets together around Thanksgiving time, in which the gentleman there even tried to remind you that has Christian foundings, and that you use the term good, and good actually, if you would like to check your history, comes from the word God, which was going to lead me, yes, it does. And if I'll allow you, I'll call you back next week after you've had time to research that.
Let's change the word to positive then. I mean, there are a lot of words in our language that come from religious background, but that doesn't mean that we're using them in the religious sense.
Okay, and so therefore also, since we are using the term, since I didn't use the term good, she did, by the way. I was just pointing that out.
Okay.
Okay, but anyway.
But, I mean, I'm not going to strike the word good from my vocabulary just because it happens to come from, just because the etymology of the word happens to be rooted in something that I believe is make-believe.
Well, yeah, but you call it make-believe, but
I said I believe it's make-believe.
The point that I was going to make with good is because the concept, I think you may also, I don't know this, but have a concept of good and bad, and I would like for you to educate me on exactly how does that concept fit into atheists. Matter of fact, even atheists and experience, I find that even amusing. But for instance, I'm trying to understand. Christianity, I know. Atheist Experience, I'm learning because, like I said, I watch you every Sunday.
Okay. For how long?
If I were to, let's say, find you in a parking lot somewhere and demand your wallet at gunpoint, what exactly, among your several things, if I take your wallet from you, what would you do about it? Would you call the police on me? Would you file charges against me? Or would you just let it go because I had a gun and you didn't?
I would probably file charges against you, assuming I wasn't able to defend myself at that moment from you.
Okay, and why would you do that, being an atheist, true
because
to your...
you will have done injury to me by taking my stuff, and I don't like getting personally injured.
Okay, but it would appear to me that a true atheist, if he had his way, we'd have no laws.
Why?
And therefore, you would file charges on me based on what? A penal code?
Based on the fact that people do not like it when bad stuff happens to them. They band together so that societies can mutually agree that we don't like it when things get stolen because it hurts us directly.
Scientifically, I'm going to try.
In my neighborhood.
Scientifically, I am going to try and define bad and negative things as things that create chaos.
Okay.
We as humans, we like order, we like society, we like we like all getting along together. We like bad things to not happen to us, and as empathetic beings, we therefore know what it would be like if we did bad things to other people.
I agree.
And that means things that create chaos. And our goal in life, I would say, is to avoid chaos.
Okay.
But let me actually turn the question around on you for a minute, and sort of explore the Christian idea of what's good. Okay. Is everything that God says automatically good?
Everything that God says is good.
Why?
Because God is our creator.
So God could say anything at all that he felt like saying. He could say, go out and rape somebody, and that would be good.
God would not say, go out and rape somebody.
Why?
But he has.
Why wouldn't he?
Why wouldn't he?
Because, again, God, and I can answer by turning it back on you as well. Like I was saying, why would I can understand that people like order. People don't like bad things to happen to them.
So you agree actually with Keryn's idea that morality is based on the fact that certain things are better for us and the way we live. And so we don't actually need God telling us that those things are good, because you can actually objectively identify whether they're good or not.
No, actually, what I agree is with what she said. She said people don't like bad things to happen to them.
Right.
I agree with that. But that is not what I was asking you when she
So you think if there was no God, then people would like being raped?
No, I didn't say that, but hear me out. What I said was it would be a bad thing, as people call it, for me to take your wallet at gunpoint. Can we agree on that? That would be
Would you agree that it would be bad for me,
yes,
whether or not there was a God?
But that wasn't my point as to whether or not it was a harmful thing to you or a distasteful thing to you. That was not the point I was making.
Yeah.
The point I was making is what you would do about it pursuant to what? And I asked you, that's why I specifically asked you, would you go to the police and prefer charges against me?
Yes.
And I said, based on what? Charges, what if the police told you, charge him with what? We don't have a penal code.
Wait a minute. You're completely coming out of nowhere. You're making up the idea that in an atheist society there would be no penal code.
I'm saying in the society you live in today, you have a penal code.
Yes, but you're also making this leap of logic. You're also making this leap of logic that atheists don't think there should be laws, and you're just wrong.
I never said that.
Actually, you did say that.
You did.
I never said that. I asked you what, and you never answered me. What would you do about it if there were no penal code, which our laws in this country, we're not talking about the world.
That would be stupid. I would go somewhere where people were smart enough to have come up with a penal code.
You would go, the people You have a penal code here.
Wait, okay.
You do have a
If there were no
You
penal
just
code,
said-
if there were no penal code in place, I would get a group of people together who would decide to start a penal code. They would decide what is a bad thing and how can we appropriately reprimand people for doing these bad things if they break our rules of our society that we've decided as a group to get together and create.
But that is not, and that's all nice and good, but we don't have that in this country. So what I'm saying is,
We don't have what?
We don't
you
have
don't
what?
have a penal code.
Yes,
that is
we
based
do.
Let me finish. You don't have a penal code, a system of law in America based on what a group of people as a community decide was
Okay, where in the Bible does it say you shall not jaywalk?
Nobody says in the Bible that you shall not jaywalk. But it is in
Okay,
the Bible
so
that
our
God-
morality actually comes from a little more than what God
Not to
decides.
mention-
I
It
didn't
comes
say
from
morality.
people basically deciding it's going to be a bad thing if you cross the street against the light.
I didn't say morality. That's your word. What I said was a penal code. I'm arguing about that's the difference between. Can you at least agree that there's a difference between a penal code and morality?
Sure.
Yes. Okay. And what I said to you, I'm not. And please don't put words in my mouth.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going by what I hear you say, and what I'm asking you is, because Ms. Glasser said you would be smart enough to get together as a community to decide what is bad for individuals and or for the collective society, and what is good for the collective society,
Right.
and that's fine. But I'm saying in America, you don't have, our laws have not evolved from that. Our laws actually evolved from, we have a penal code, we have a group of laws in this country that has its origin in the Bible.
Okay, I want to stop you there and say, first of all, if that were true,
It is true.
if that were true, let's see, what are the 10 Commandments? We would go to jail for committing adultery.
Right.
No, I didn't say
we
the
would
10
go to
Commandments
jail
is
for
our law. There
coveting
you go
our
again.
neighbor's
You're
wife.
obfuscating.
Right.
I did not say the 10 Commandments is our law. I said
Wait,
our.
aren't the 10 Commandments part of what it says in the Bible?
It is, but she's saying.
Why don't we go? Why
she's
don't
trying
we
to
stone
infer-
disobedient children to death?
She's trying to infer that the 10 Commandments is our law, and I'm saying it's not our law.
No,
That
you
is where
said
our laws came from.
You said our penal code comes from religion, but
I
that
did not say our penal code comes from religion.
Okay.
I did not say that. Zen
What did
Buddhism
you
is
say?
a religion. Say our penal code comes from Zen Buddhism? I said our laws in this country evolved from the Bible.
if that
No.
were true,
Yes.
then it would be illegal. Then it would be illegal to not celebrate the Sabbath. It would be
you know
illegal
what?
to eat fish on Fridays.
That's not true.
No.
No,
The other way around.
are you saying that societies that don't follow the Bible don't develop their own laws?
No, I didn't say that.
Actually, I think that the laws in the Bible are themselves evolved from earlier
I would
laws,
say-
like the Code of Hammurabi,
No, I
which are
didn't say
completely
that.
non-religiously based.
That's the reason why, sir, I didn't say if I tried to take your wallet in Ethiopia. I said if I tried to
Okay,
take
but
your
even
wallet
if there was
here.
never a Bible, you agree that we'd still have the Code of Hammurabi, don't you think?
Oh, I'm sure we still have the Code of Hammurabi.
Okay,
but
so
you're
what's
not
your
going to-
point
you're not
in-
gonna prefer
yeah,
charges
what's your
against me
point
at
in
APD based on
suggesting that-
Hammurabi's code?
What's your point in suggesting that that we wouldn't have a penal code? Okay, maybe
I
I'm
never said
misrepresenting
we
you
wouldn't have
again.
a penal code.
You asked me what would you do? What would I do if you mugged me?
I said, if I mugged you,
Yeah.
what would you do?
And
one of
I
the
said I
things
would
that-
go to the police, and then for some crazy reason, you said I couldn't do that.
No,
Why?
I didn't say you couldn't do it. What I said is what you never answered. I didn't say you couldn't do it. I said that if you did do it, you would be asking for charges against me through APD. You would ask that I be charged with a crime
Yes.
pursuant
Yes.
to the current penal code we have.
A
the laws of
crime
the state of Texas.
which would also have been illegal before the Bible was written.
Not necessarily.
Yes, it would.
No, it
because
wouldn't.
because of the Code of Hammurabi, which outlined the first laws way before the Bible said anything about laws.
But see, the thing about it is, though, sir, you have the laws. We do know for a fact you have the laws in the United States based on the Bible, because the founders of this country were Christians who signed the Mayflower Compact. You can read it yourself.
Can I put you on hold for a second? I don't want to hang up on you yet, but but another ACA member would like to get on the line and talk to you also.
Cool.
Hang on. We're going to Matt Dillahunty. Hello?
Hey, guys.
Hi.
I had called originally looking up the sobriety, the secular sobriety thing. They have meetings the first Wednesday of every month at the Unitarian Universalist Church. But you guys already got that up. So I was sitting on hold, and since I had done a show on what the other caller is actually talking about now, if he goes to our website and searches back through the archives, he can download the discussion of the Ten Commandments and why they are not the basis of our laws, especially since only 2 of the commandments even remotely relate to federal law.
But
and
what
only
he would say, what he would say to that is the Ten Commandments isn't what he's talking about.
Yeah, I know. He's talking about a divine law from a God, but he refuses to acknowledge your point that if God can arbitrarily choose, or can God arbitrarily choose, which was the reason we had the Youth for Project link up, which I thought was great. But he also made some other mistakes, like the word good being from the word God.
Oh, really?
The etymology of the word good comes from a word, G-O-D, which I suppose if you stop reading right there, I guess you could make a case that it comes from God. But unfortunately, that's not God, it's goad. So if he takes a few minutes and runs over to the online etymology dictionary, he can look that it comes from the word goad, meaning having the right or desirable quality, which comes from gothas, originally fit, adequate, belonging together, etc. So good is not derived.
And gothas, I'm guessing, is a Greek word. The etymology of the word good comes from Greek?
Yes.
Yeah,
no,
and Greek, as I remember it correctly, is polytheistic.
Gothas is Dutch German.
Are you still? Oops. Oh, shoot.
Gothas
Darn it.
is Dutch
Matt,
German.
are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Hold
on. Wait. Darn phone box. Okay, wait. Keith, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay. Do you have any comment about that?
Yeah. Actually, I agree with him on one thing. Yes, and that's the point I was going to make, but it really wasn't worth going into. But it is Germanic in origin. The word good.
All right. Back to Matt. Yes, Matt?
Yeah, which, how can you agree that it's Germanic in origin and that it's from goad, but...
So you're saying that our word God doesn't come from the same thing?
No.
Or does it?
No, not at all.
It doesn't?
No.
Oh.
The two...
All right.
The word good does not come etymologically from the word God at all. He also made another claim that Muslims are a significant force in the United States, yet they represent less than 0.4% of the U.S. population. There's a reason why we typically go on about Christians, and he talked about Christians not being the only ones who believe in God or hell. That's not the point. They are the majority religion. They are the ones who are active, as you guys pointed out. And the point is that they're the only ones with a religious holiday, which is also a federal holiday. I had somebody else bring up the Thanksgiving argument. Thanksgiving isn't really a religious holiday. It's a federal holiday with religious observance. But it's not a religious holiday for Christians. It has no bearing on the Christian theology at all.
Well,
it is strictly a United States celebration at Thanksgiving.
I see what you're saying.
So it's not religious in origin.
You mean
the first people?
You mean the first people who observed it were pilgrims, and they were religious about it, but the holiday didn't come from the religion.
Right. It's incidental, and it's a merging of religion and everything else. But it's not a Christian.
I didn't think it was religious in origin either. I mean, as far as I knew, it was more historical. It was more like a Jewish holiday. Basically, they were saying Thanksgiving about the pilgrims came over to this country and made peace with the Indians, and they all had dinner together.
Yeah, but who do you think they're giving thanks to?
Yeah, that was the argument that the gentleman that I'd been discussing things with made to me was, well, who do you think they were praying to? And I'm like, well, that's absolutely irrelevant.
I didn't know they were praying. I thought they were being thankful. I'm thankful for a lot of things every day. That doesn't mean I'm being thankful to someone.
Yeah, it's the same thing when they talk about the war on Christmas, when you've got Puritans who had completely outlawed Christmas because it was a pagan observation, which most Americans have evidently forgotten. The other thing about why we're going after Christians is because Christians are the one who are trying to marginalize people's rights in general. Now, I was a Christian fundamentalist for over 20 years, was going to go to seminary. I understand what he's saying about the Christian viewpoint, about Christians don't relish in the idea of people going to hell. Their entire purpose is to preach to them and save them from hell. But it doesn't change the fact that at a fundamental level, the only conclusion you can draw from a reading of Scripture is that those people who do not accept God deserve to go to hell. And
can I check in with Keith about that?
Sure, I only got one quick thing, and then I'll let you go anyway.
I tried to put you guys on the line together at first, but I couldn't do it. Hold on. What do you think of that, Keith?
Well, he said a mouthful, and some of what he said actually makes my point, but I do disagree.
I'm interested in the last bit, though, that ultimately, as a Christian, you have to believe that people who don't believe in Jesus deserve to go to hell.
Well, without going into, and I know he understands this, if he was once a fundamentalist Christian, I know he'll understand the concept.
We've lost Keith, and it wasn't my fault, I promise. But anyway, back to Matt, who I guess gets the last word. Matt?
I didn't want to get the last word in. There's a lot of things. Christians tend to look on the bright side of things, like the caller that you had earlier, who was saying that he doesn't like to look at the bad side of it. And basically what he did was he cut out all of the things about religion that you could find objectionable, and he's left with his religion is nothing more than another worldview based in reality, where there are good things and bad things. And
and not only that, but it seemed to me like every time he made a point, we'd illustrate his point, and he'd tell us that's not what he was saying, and then he'd change his point.
Yeah, he was ducking and dodging, because the fact of the matter is that on a fundamental level, there are objectionable things about religion, and they're very difficult for people to deal with, particularly Christians, because they want to keep the warm, fuzzy, positive feelings going. But the thing is, when you reduce religion to being no better than anything else, if there's nothing that you can get out of your religion once you've taken away the bad part that I can't attain without religion, then there's no benefit to your religion. There's no reason to adopt a religion if everything from it you can get from outside the religion. Right. And that's fundamental with one of the reasons that I became an atheist. Not only that, I discovered that I no longer had a good reason to believe in God, and that there were plenty of other answers that were better. It's religion offers no benefit that cannot be attained without religion, right down to including charity work that they do. You can do that without religion.
Okay.
But that's all I had to say, you guys. You've been doing a great show, and we'll see you all later.
Thanks for the support, Matt.
Yep.
Bye. We've had a caller on the line who was actually on topic for today, and he's been languishing on line 3 for a while. So, Alex, you're on.
Hey.
Hi.
Sorry for the wait.
First of all, I'm glad to see a woman on television.
Thank you.
Talking something that is very important. I'm not saying anything bad about having Russell in the show either.
Okay.
But I would like to thank you guys for the program, which is going to set up my idea. First, this type of programs create awareness, and
that's one of our purposes.
Yeah, and I applaud your effort. As you can notice, there are other people watching you very carefully, and that's the danger of today. Today is not very safe to be in this position. Be aware, it's very dangerous. Here in the United States, in Mexico, in India, in Russia, in Europe. If you're aware right now, which we are increasingly growing in numbers. I would say exponentially, because I think it's the time to be awake. Notice what religion means in general. No matter what religion you're talking about, the damage that it's doing to us is the damage that it has done in history. Not just your grandfather or my grandfather or someone else's grandfather, but today. Today is a consequence of, what we have done. Not what any God has tell people to do. We, the base of religion is that we have shift of responsibility as a human beings to blame some or acts to someone else.
Alex, we're running out of time, and we got a couple of other callers left. But thanks a lot for your input.
Yeah, I just the really quick point I want to make is that we need to be more and more creating these programs. I like to make sure that some people watch you and promote your website, and we need awareness in this world to create a better world and educate our kids to make sure that they don't follow any religion and create this environment that we have today that is creating, everything that we have done so far.
Okay, I mostly agree with you, so thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. And we appreciate that. And if you or any of the other viewers out there feel that way, feel free to get involved and feel free to.
Yes, and feel free to join us after the show is over.
At Mongolian Barbecue. Feel free to tell your friends about our show.
6:45, yes.
Feel free to tell your producers about our show.
Yes, and I've found out that Keith was actually cut off by a glitch in the control room. He did go on, we did have him on for 25 minutes, so we weren't running away from him. But if you'd like to discuss more with us, we're almost out of time in the show, but you can always email tv@atheist-community.org, and we can continue the discussion that we were having. Okay, probably the last call of the day. We're going to go to Tom real quick. Hello, Tom.
Hey, Keryn and Russell, thanks a lot for getting me that phone number. I was just calling back real quick to let that kind of arrogant caller, Keith, that you had, he seemed pretty sure of his facts, but Jehovah's Witnesses definitely do not believe in hell, which he said that they did, and that's absolutely not true. So just wanted to point that out to him.
Thank you.
It's kind of a minor point, but
yeah, but I wouldn't have done it, except he was kind of arrogant about how he would be saying that one of you was wrong about something, had the facts wrong, and he doesn't even know that. And I think it's a good time for mocking. So thanks, you guys. Talk to you later.
And really,
thanks for calling back.
Judaism doesn't believe in hell.
No.
And I would posit that Christianity and all offshoots of Christianity believe in hell, and nobody else in the world does.
And I think Jehovah's Witness is kind of an offshoot of
most offshoots.
And hell is one of the things that tends to get pushed to the side when people are deciding which parts of the Bible to believe and which not to. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen surveys saying things like, and I'm just throwing out numbers off the top of my head, but like 85% of people believe in heaven, or 85% believe in some kind of God, 70% believe in heaven, and 30% believe in hell and the devil.
Because they don't want to.
Right.
But, okay, I would like to end the show on a positive note also. Yes. I just, want to tell all of our viewers that I get some real good compliments from people sometimes. Just that watch our show. I had a coworker that came up to me and told me that she watched our show, and she was raised Catholic, and I, we gave her a lot of information that she hadn't heard before, and it really made her think about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's possible my boss may be watching this show for the first time. He asked me about it.
My boss watched the show once in a while. I love
My boss's
hearing,
boss watches the show.
I love hearing that our coworkers watch it and that we're spreading some knowledge that they didn't know before. We're causing them to think about things that they hadn't really thought about before.
We got to say goodbye. Thank you, crew. Thank you, all your watchers, and we'll see you next week, same time, 4:30. Bye.